you don't have to come up if you had a question. I'll be handling that. When you're all done tonight, please, unlike the Canterbury way, please leave your chairs where they are. There's another event tomorrow that needs some chairs for some time. Fire exits are right in the back, down the hall. There are bathrooms down the hall. And next Tuesday is election day, session 1 of our 2-part time together. Hope to see all of you on Tuesday, 7 to 7, so we try to make it convenient. And then we have town meeting a week from Friday, 7 p.m. So the timing, we're going to first have the selectmen candidates come up. We're going to work through sort of the order of office here. These are in alphabetical order. Each candidate is going to have 3 minutes to sort of state their case. Then each slate, so the selectmen, for example, are going to have 9 minutes total to answer questions. In terms of, a question gets asked, each select person will have an opportunity, a short opportunity to answer that question. And once we've run out of the 18 minutes, if there's 3 candidates, then we'll move on to planning board, school board. If Carolyn Peterson, is she here? If she comes, she'll have 3 minutes to talk about the warrant article that has to do with the school separation committee. If she's not here, she's not here. We have a couple of candidates who can't be here tonight. I have a statement from one of them for school board. We may get another one, but maybe not. We didn't get it in advance. After we've gone through all of that, we'll have about half an hour to open it up for general questions for any of the candidates. All right, does that all sound good?
Good.
Okay, excellent. All right, so if the select candidates can come up. Awesome. Oh, we went through that last year, didn't we? No, this year we're gonna by last. Scott Doherty, I'll give the mic to you so that the Zoom people can hear you.
You want me up here?
Way up here.
Better, I'll step back there just a little bit. Just push your chair back a little bit, it's just better later. Okay.
All right, and you can start in your 3 minutes.
Okay, so good evening, my name is Scott Jordan, I'm one of the candidates for select board here in Canterbury. I've got 3 minutes, so I'm going to I took some notes to keep me on track. So I was born and raised in upstate New York and went to work for the City of Schenectady Fire Department. Did about 25 years there, just over 25 years. About half of that was spent as a chief. So I've got a lot of experience with municipal budget. That was what I did in Schenectady, was help administer bureaus. So the fire department budget was about, it started about 8 million, and by the time I retired it was about 10.5 million. So I'm used to working with big numbers. So while I was working for the fire department full-time, I also worked part-time as a paramedic for the town of Colony, which is a town of about 100,000 people. So I worked there for 20 years, part-time. Also worked for the state police as a flight medic. So if you're catching the vibe, I might have been a workaholic, you're probably right. So I like to keep busy. While I was with the fire department, I started a team of SWAT medics. So there was a need, we had a very busy SWAT team in my city. We had a couple of incidences of shootings while on call, so there was a real need. So I stood that team up and ran that for several years. After that, I took over as the commander of the investigation unit and became a police officer. So I have the distinction of being the oldest graduate of a police academy in New York State period. So it wasn't a lot of fun. I'll fill everybody in on that part of it at a later date. I must have done something, but because I actually got national attention for the convictions I was getting. So the feds invited me to join a task force. It was called the Violent Felon Task Force. So I actually retired after 2.5 years of doing the task force. Thank you. So educationally, a bachelor's degree in business management and economics, master's degree in public administration. So Kathy and I moved to Canterbury in 2015. I've been a cemetery keeper, and we continue to do that. Planning board for about 5 years, fire department for about 5 years. And I guess that's probably the bulk of my time. So thank you.
Sumner Dole is next. 3 minutes. Thank you.
I'll stand back here, late, okay? I'd like to ask a question first. How many of you saw the write-ups in the Canterbury Church newsletter about all the candidates? The email, the Canterbury email? So if I forget something, you can help me. Some years old, I've lived in Canterbury for 35 years. I'm married to Kathy Blind. We have 3 grown daughters and 8 grandchildren. I was a forester with the University of New Hampshire. I was a county forester in both Merrimack and Belknap County. Education, I went to Syracuse University, State University College of Environmental Science and Forestry, and I have a master's in public administration from UNH. I've served on a number of town committees, as you know, Industrial Land Committee, Agricultural Commission, advisor the selectmen here on the trees in the center. I've thought about running for a selectman for a couple of years, and ever since high school when civics, I was fascinated with the governing process, and that as I went up through my forestry career, I was amazed at some of the conservation laws and changes in society that we had. You know, it used to be that the wilderness was a place to be banished to if you were a bad person, but now it's a revered place, and we have laws that protect it and enhance the wilderness. So it's conservation and policy and law is kind of interesting. And here in Canterbury, back when I was doing my master's in public administration, I did a study on the Trust for New Hampshire Lands, and that resulted in the Riverland Conservation Area down on the river.
1 minute.
Thank you. I'd like to be a selectman. I've had 12 years' experience on the school board, handling 57% of your tax dollars that went to school. And it's about a $20 million budget. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I am not nearly as good at speaking as these two, so please bear with me. I am not a public speaker. As many of you know, my name is Calvin Todd. I've been in town for about 9 years now. My wife and I, Alice, moved here shortly after I got out of the service. I was retired from the service after I lost my leg overseas. Essentially, we chose Canterbury because I grew up in New Hampshire. I grew up in a small town, and I loved everything about small towns. I love what they stand for, the opportunities it offers kids and families, and Canterbury really drew us in. The town I grew up in was no longer small. It developed and turned into something that it wasn't. We set roots here, and I think that's very important that when you set roots in a town, you need to be invested in its long-term goals. You know, as a younger person, I really want to see and have the ability to make decisions that influence the town, not 2 years down the road, not 10 years down the road, but 30, 40 years down the road. I think a lot of us know right now, town is poised for growth. There's been a lot of murmurs and talk about subdivisions, condos, cluster subdivisions, affordable housing, a lot of things. We've got the schools warrant article that's up. And ultimately, those are really big money issues, and those are really big things that forever change what your town is. And I think my experience and background and life experiences would allow me to help interject with those decisions and try to balance wants versus needs, what's necessity versus not. I thoroughly believe in the public schools. I think we owe it to ourselves to investigate them. I think this warrant article this year should be passed. You know, it's very expensive education, like Sumner said, 57% of our budget is for schools. And ultimately, by spending $12,000, I think that we can thoroughly see where our money goes, and I think we all owe it to ourselves to maximize our investment. Now, whatever information comes out of that is what comes out of that. But along with education, and I already touched on development, I think a lot of us know, you know, internet, technologies, infrastructure, Canterbury is sort of behind the 8 ball. I think we need to address it. We sort of drag our feet too long, and it needs to be in the forefront of our decision making for the future. There are options out there, and I think we can address those. But ultimately, I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and bearing with my public speaking. And I really enjoy seeing people taking part in this, and I think it's important that we do that. So thank you.
All right, so now I open it up to a question or two, maybe 3, depending on how much time we manage to take, for the candidates to answer. So somebody.
Do we just call them out from where we stand?
You can raise your hand and I'll be
Okay.
happy to call on you. Right ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name is Randy Johnson, and I have a question for Mr. Doherty. So I see that you were on the planning board, and now you're running for selectman. I attended the visioning sessions. I've been reading the minutes, and to what Calvin said is right. A lot of people are looking to develop Canterbury. One thing I don't see in any of the documentation is any impact to the schools. How would you plan on addressing that as people are looking into expand our very small community with our very small elementary school?
All right, so let's see if I can summarize this. It's a question to start with. Scott wants to know what he thinks about how to handle the impact on the schools from growth in the town.
Yeah, so it's all over the planning board with the plan for tomorrow, with their meeting minutes, but there's no discussion on any
Okay.
of that
So
about the
missing
impact of
piece there,
schools. Yes.
from the planning boards. All right.
So I think a lot of this probably stems, the planning board had a pre-conceptual meeting recently with 2 developers. And their proposal, and once again, it was a pre-conceptual meeting, their proposal is a development of condos, just the parcel of 35 acres that's for sale up by exit 18. And they were talking somewhere over 100 condo units. So that's potentially a huge impact to us here in Canterbury. Not just that, there are other pressures as well. Certainly, I think that as the area around exit 17 gets filled in, the pressure was going to look northward to Canterbury, and then as the industrial area in 18 also gets filled in and is potentially filled in those condos, that the pressure will be coming in from the north as well. So I can't remember the last figures I saw for the elementary school. I think enrollment right now is around 118. Last year, if I remember the last figures that I had access to, it was a little lower than that, I think at around 104. So its impact not only on the schools, but also on fire, police, town services in general. But I think that, certainly the elementary school, we don't have much room for growth. So where do we look then? Do we look at potentially putting some kind of an addition on the school? That's a huge expense, and as Mr. Dole said, 57% of our taxes already are schools. So these are tough issues, and they're issues that we're going to have to wrestle with. Maybe not in the next 3 years, but certainly they're coming. And I think that the 2 developers that presented this concept at the planning board meeting have not returned. They would have some zoning issues if they choose to buy that parcel and go in there, but they may be back. We could potentially be looking at a couple dozen more children. And Randy, to directly answer that part of the question, I like the idea of Canterbury children going to school here, our elementary kids. So guess that's my time.
I'm gonna just go down the line. Do you wanna respond to that question at all, or do you want a new question?
You're the moderator.
I think it's a good question.
How would it
Does
respond?
that sound good? You got the answer from the other two? So, yeah. So in terms of, the impact on the schools from upcoming planning changes,
I can go with this. I think,
2 minutes.
okay, I got this. Ultimately, when we look at the plan for tomorrow, which right now, I believe it was due out in 2020, so we're 13 years past our last plan for tomorrow, our master plan. I thoroughly think we need to put the schools towards the front of the line in how we vision the future of the town. Because ultimately, we are growing. Schools are very expensive, and education should be paramount for everybody. I think if we incorporate the schools in our plan for tomorrow and sort of steer the growth in town, we can decide whether condos are appropriate, or cluster subdivisions are appropriate, or is 55 and over housing appropriate. I think if we can get a grasp on what we as a town decide for our schools, then we can grow in relation to that. For instance, if we decide we want to go K through 8 in town, then we can allow more housing and different types of housing that would allocate to that. You know, you don't want to be in a position where you have a large sum of people coming in and your school is not adequate, your highway department's not adequate, you don't have fire trucks, you don't have police officers. So we really need to sort of set a priority in what we view as the future of the town and what we view the future of the schools, and use that as the first stepping stone for how we grow. Thank you.
Okay, good. Go right ahead. You have up to 2 minutes.
I think growth is gonna happen in Canterbury in what you do. I just hope we can keep out the Dollar Generals and things like that. I think we're the only town in this area that doesn't have one. We're lucky. But I think as we go forward with growth, it really puts a strain on our volunteer government that we have with our, whether it be conservation commissions, planning board, ZBA, selectmen. You really need to have good people on those boards making decisions. And it's gonna be harder and harder. Some of these folks coming towards us with these developments are pretty sophisticated, they got a lot of money, they got a lot of lawyers, and, you know, they're gonna push it to go through. Years ago, Canterbury used to have a moratorium on building. You know, whether we can do something like that, I don't know. But I think one of the things we can do with relating to schools is perhaps the school board has to engage in some strategic planning and connect better with the planning board and the other boards in town, because we are gonna grow and there are gonna be more students. And for the same reason, I think they ought to have strategic planning, because that relates to that withdrawal study, is we need to know what's working, what's not working, what needs to be fixed, what opportunities exist, and have a good handle on what's happening, because the schools are a large part of our community. Thank you.
Do we have a Zoom question yet, Greg?
Oh, we have not solicited them,
Oh, okay.
following the
Well,
staff instructions, easy.
and that's fine, if you want, again, the thing about Zoom questions is we're capturing them, and so we can offer the candidates the opportunity to answer questions afterwards if necessary, for those folks. Okay, well, that tells me, let's see.
Jim, would you take one more question?
One more question, and then we'll go on to the next group. Yes, I think we still have a few minutes.
Hi, I'm Doris Hampton.
Doris, I apologize, Randy, I'm gonna move the mic over here. I should have done it for you. It's hard with some of the questions to catch all the pieces.
Thanks for running for office. I'm wondering if you could share your relationship to the Free State Project, whether you have a relationship or if there are ideas of the Free State Project that you think are worthwhile for our town to consider.
You wanna go first?
Sure.
You wanna go first?
I don't know what the Free State Free State project is, so I'm ignorant to the question, so I apologize.
That's okay, maybe after the others respond,
Okay,
we may
well,
have a thought.
Okay.
see, yeah, because I don't really, yeah, go ahead.
I'm also unfamiliar with the Free State project. Don't know anything more than that.
Sumner? Maybe we'll get Doris to walk us through the three
I
steps.
will say, I've heard it, but that's it. I don't have any comment to make on it.
No problem. All right, so do you have a succinct,
I'll
sort of?
give it a try,
All
somebody
right.
else maybe can help me. So
Here.
there are individuals who've been moving to New Hampshire with the goal of reaching, I think, 20,000. They're scattered throughout our state, and they have a definite philosophy about government and how towns should be run. One example was the town of Grafton, where many people who were free staters voted to dramatically decrease funding in schools by 50%. And so it was going to be online education, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if there's some other piece somebody wants to add to that? And I'm
That
surprised
was
you haven't heard of it.
That was the Canterbury project.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you.
I was the one to capture
So, you guys have any more to add?
Still don't know anything about it, sorry. But certainly, I would not be in favor of cutting our school budget.
I think I vaguely know what you're talking about. When you said Croydon, there was a book written about it, right? Something about fairs. But long story short, I don't believe in the free state movement. I've lived in New Hampshire my whole life, so I like towns running the way towns run, and I think that we can adequately address our issues within the town, so no, I don't support the free state project.
I wasn't.
Right, unanimity. That's great. Well, round of applause for the candidates. And don't go anywhere in case there are questions after we get through everybody. All right, next up is the planning board, folks. All right, so, Lucy Nichols, has she joined on Zoom?
I don't think so, she,
Okay. Well, she is our third candidate, but I don't have a statement from her, and she hasn't joined us on Zoom, so if we don't hear from her, we don't hear from her.
How many seats are available, Jim?
Huh?
How many seats on the planning?
There are,
Two?
2 out of 3 candidates. Yes? Right?
Yes.
Okay. Trying to keep it all straight. And so we'll again go in alphabetical order. We'll start with Rich Marcoux. Good. After all these years. Anyway, so go ahead, 3 minutes to talk about yourself.
I have a prepared statement, so I'll just read what I've got. Practiced a couple of times, it takes me 3 minutes, so if you start your time now, I'll be good. My name is Rich Marcoux. I'm running for a seat on the planning board. I'm a lifelong native of New Hampshire. I was born in Berlin, and I've lived in cities and towns all across New Hampshire. I've lived in Canterbury here for almost 7 years. I'm a veteran, and I'm retired from the state of New Hampshire, having tenure as a conservation officer with Fish and Game, and as a middle school science teacher. You may remember me as the person who wrote the warrant article a few years ago, and I spoke at town meeting to obtain the adoption of the veteran tax credit for all veterans. That was me. I have a bachelor's degree in biology, wildlife management, and I'm currently serving as the chair of the Solid Waste Committee. I'm a problem solver who can think logically to make unbiased decisions, and I'm extremely organized. I'm running because of my desire to provide service to the community in which I live. I believe I can contribute to finding creative solutions to maintain the rural character of our town. I think it's important to understand that growth is inevitable. However, growth will have impacts on the local infrastructure, school, emergency services, our roads, and our taxes. Promoting business growth is one way to offset the impact of taxes, yet farms and agriculture are traits that most people desire here in town. Open and undeveloped space is also important and desirable to preserve. I want to help find that balance. The challenges are many. Young families cannot afford to buy homes in town. At the same time, our citizens are aging and have nowhere to downsize to and still remain in town. Truly affordable housing, not the ones that require over a $100,000 income, and or senior housing, if placed in something like a clustered development, would allow this type of needed growth while still keeping our farms and open spaces undeveloped. Growth in this manner would bring in manageable measured growth to the infrastructure, small increases to the school system, affordable housing for a new homeowner, and provide a place for our seniors to downsize as they stay in the community that they love. The alternative would be new builds on individual lots with no mindfulness to the impact of the larger picture of the environment. Unplanned growth would slowly encroach upon the spaces that we wish to keep and preserve and would have a significant impact to the rural character of our town. In closing, my goal is to work together with elected officials and the community at large so that we can find that balance to provide the infrastructure we need for measured growth while keeping our rural community green spaces that are the essence of our town. Thank you.
Oh, great, okay. So we're, Logan, Snyder, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Logan Snyder, and I am a lifelong Canterburyan. I grew up here. I went to public school here. Left briefly and came back, and I intend to stay here. I have been an alternate for the planning board for the past year, and I have very much enjoyed working with the planning board members in working on the plan for tomorrow, and simply learning a lot about how the planning board works and what it does and doesn't do, and the things that the board itself and the people in town care about in terms of planning for the future of the town, planning for the growth which is inevitable, planning for places for families, places for people who are aging, because we do know that Canterbury is an aging community currently. I'm also a farm kid. I grew up on a small farm on the east side of Canterbury, and I still own 16 acres Canterbury farm that is in current use. And I very much believe in the rural and agricultural character of Canterbury. It's part of what I love about this town. It's part of why I wanted to come back here and live my life here. I also am a small business owner. I own a marketing company. I need high-speed internet. I understand that many other people care a great deal about this, and I believe it's a public utility. So I am a big believer in finding ways for us to move forward into a future that is modern, but also does not give up on the natural and rural and agricultural aspects that make this town what it is and the feel of the town. I feel like those things are very important. I have loved being able to be involved in planning board conversations, and I would very much like to be able to contribute a vote as well as a voice as an elected member. Thank you.
This is Greg Heath speaking, and I do have Lucy Nichols' statement here. I want to apologize to Logan. You were off screen for about half of your statement. Maybe we can just leave it on. So anyway, let me find Lucy's statement here. Okay. Why I want to be on the planning board, Canterbury planning board. I like the work and contributing to the community. I've served 1 3-year term and 3 years as an alternate. The issues that come before the planning board are complex enough that it's helpful to learn a few things before joining the board. I live in the neighborhood, likely to change fastest in the next few years, and so am a good voice to have in the mix on the board. I own a small business in the Exit 18 neighborhood, Riverland on the Merrimack, a B&B. I have a good feel for the commercial forces at play. Canterbury is lucky. The new market basket plaza will create many opportunities for businesses that are likely to pay more in taxes than the light industrial uses that have found us in recent years. These new retail and service businesses will fit in better with the existing neighborhood and pay more taxes. A win-win for Canterbury. Residents of Canterbury have told the planning board through the master plan process that they want the rural character and sense of community to remain unchanged. You can have commercial growth and tax relief at exit 17, exit 18 and along Route 106, and the rest of the town can continue as it has done for years. My background. I have created a bed and breakfast at Riverland, which is hard but satisfying work. Before coming to Canterbury in 2016 to open the B&B, my husband James and I created a small sheep farm in Greenfield, New Hampshire, where we raised and homeschooled our son Ben. Before Ben was born, I was the senior manager in charge of advocacy and research for Oxfam America in Boston and Washington, D.C. And way back, I earned a PhD in the economics of developing countries in England and worked as a consultant for the World Bank and the International Development Bank. How does all this help me on the planning board? We are currently rewriting the master plan. I have written many similar policy documents, although the content differs some, the process is similar. I manage Riverland, which we consider part of our farm. Years of managing the part of our farm in Greenfield prepared me to manage the part of our farm in Canterbury. I deal with the details of conservation daily. I was born in New Hampshire and have lived most of my life here, although I don't yet know all of you. I'm raised up on the same ground. My grandfather and uncle were dairy farmers in Danvers, Mass. And Saco, Maine, respectively. Our history goes way back, as does the life stories of many people in Canterbury.
Well, good, we've got statements from all three. By the way, I forgot one critical thing when I started talking tonight. I am here as a volunteer. I am not acting as your town moderator. I am simply moderating this meeting. So make sure that's clear. I get plenty to do. So now we have time for a question or two for the planning candidates. Who has a question? We'll just see if anybody else has a question. All right. Well, let me bring the mic over. Randy?
It's not the same question, don't worry, even though I did consider
We
it.
rehearsed all this ahead of time.
I've heard a lot about cluster subdivisions, but I don't really understand what they are. I like looking out my windows and not seeing my neighbors' houses. And then I have to wonder, is Sherwood Forest a cluster subdivision? They have lots of problems up there with their roads that I hear them complain about. Is Cambridge Drive a cluster subdivision? Can you give us more information on what this is and how it prevents everyone with a surplus of acreage from wanting to do cluster subdivisions?
Thank you. Here, 2 minutes. Go ahead.
It's my understanding cluster subdivision is a compact development. Whereas the alternative, as like I said in my speech, is I've got a neighbor who lives about a half mile away from me. There were 4 parcels of land. There were 6 and 9 acres each that they carved up, subdivided. And one person bought 3 of the parcels. The neighbor next door bought one of them to protect himself. The person who bought this, was from, I suspect from out of state, because the logger that clear cut 30 acres was from Brewster, Massachusetts. Set it on the side of his truck. I don't know where the individual is. So you end up clear cutting a piece of property that was 30 acres. I walk that road every day with my dog. I know there was a beautiful deer run right through the middle of that. And there was also a snowmobile trail, and hiking and walking trails and everything. So the alternative is to do nothing and let somebody come in and buy 3 out of the 4 for sale parcels, clear cut them, and plop a house that looks like it's gonna be big, right in the middle of it. So, growth is inevitable. Should we control it? Put it where we want it to be.
So I'm gonna probably look over here at Scott and hope I'm not butchering the definition of a cluster subdevelopment. Cluster subdevelopment, my understanding of this is that you're developing several houses within a small space with also some green space around that. And that's some of what we've been talking about in the planning board is a possibility for, adding housing opportunity in Canterbury that might.
I apologize, this thing doesn't have its
Push buttons, that's not. So that's one of the options for increasing, hopefully, affordable family housing in Canterbury without having the situation where you have, house and then house and then house and then house and then house all right up along the road. So part of the idea of the structure of the cluster development is to have open space around clustered houses. Personally, as someone who sort of is relatively new to this concept, because I've been an alternate on the planning board for the past year and previously had never heard the term, it sort of feels like a bit of a misnomer to me. I feel like it implies a lot like more houses and less green space than actually is the reality. And why are we not going to have this all over town? I mean, for one thing, I don't think anyone really wants that all over town, but also it's prohibited in a lot of zoning areas. So.
Lucy has a response also.
Oh, excellent.
And that's imaginary Lucy.
Right.
No, she's not imaginary.
We should have a picture.
She's virtual.
The idea of Lucy.
This is the future, virtual candidates.
So Lucy has essentially echoed that and said that, in addition, that their rules around cluster development are fairly strict. So it's pretty well defined apparently in the, somewhere in there.
Okay. We have another question. Yes.
So, having been involved in this process in prior years, the constant push and pull is how do you square keeping a rural character and allowing for growth? And I think that is the tug that this current planning board is trying to solve with the new plan for tomorrow, but was addressed it really resulted in the 1980 plan for tomorrow that resulted in essentially in building permit limits and rezoning, 2, 3, 5, 10 acre zones, creating them. So how, and this may not be a question you can answer because it goes on so long, so I'm not trying to trick you, I'm just trying to ask you, what do you see as a way to square rural character with need for development?
2 minutes apiece.
I think it's, trying to keep that balance, whether it's with conservation land or open space, or, you've gotta let some development happen, or else if you don't let the developer in to provide the need for the housing, I mean, people can't afford houses, and they want to move here. I know we have some town officials, I won't say any names, but I know there's one person that I've had conversation with, and she couldn't find a place in Canterbury, been looking for years. Unfortunately, a lot of the houses that grow equity, either become unaffordable for, a young person, or they become too much for a senior person. That now they wanna move out of it, downsize, gain their equity, so maybe we built some starter homes where, some senior can move into them. You know, there's a balance that can be discussed and brought up and talked about.
Okay. Logan?
This is a theme clearly in this meeting, and it's also very much been a theme of planning board conversations that I've been involved in over the last year. And I think the things that come up repeatedly, the things that are on the table for that are things like cluster development in selected areas. Again, absolutely, as Lucy said, that's very limited where those can be. And yeah, there's a great deal of limitations on where those would function. So one of the options is, development and adding new homes in selected areas of town. One of the things that has also come up is accessory dwelling units, so effectively think in-law apartments, which certainly are a viable option for seniors in town. This is effectively the whole theme of what we've been working on for the plan for tomorrow. It's not a small question, it's certainly not a 2-minute question. It's a giant document of a question. And the big theme is growth. Growth is inevitable. We've heard that a few times, but it doesn't have to completely alter the character of the town overnight, which I think is a thing that few to none of us would want. Gradual change in a controlled way with logical placement of additional housing is kind of the theme for the plan for tomorrow and for the planning board as I know it. We've been looking at, one of our most recent meetings, we were looking at sort of what the logical increase in growth is for Canterbury based on the growth of the population in the area overall. And effectively the amount of growth that we have seen in new housing and building permits over the last few years that we were looking at is very much in line with the amount of growth that makes sense regionally for us to continue to have, which is an interesting thing to look at. Obviously, not a question we can fully answer here, but very much something that we're paying a lot of attention to.
Lucy, thank you.
Good.
So, Lucy here. Canterbury has many formal and informal ways of dampening development, which have kept a slow rate of growth consistent with stability in the school and the town services. We are looking at creating housing for downsizing seniors and diversity of, pardon me, computers are so much fun. Diversity of housing more available to younger people. Selective growth for people here now. Master plan will explain better.
Okay. Can you hold your question till the general questions?
I'll be asking a couple more, yeah.
Okay, but you'll be first.
Okay.
Promise you that. All right. Thank you again to the candidates. All right, so let's see, we have a candidate who is not going to speak, I believe, John Zogel, for cemetery trustee, but running unopposed. There's some moderator candidate. I'm not going to speak either. Just look forward to see you on Tuesday. Trustee of the trust fund, Greg, are you?
You've heard enough from me.
Yeah, well, is it you or is it Lucy? We'll never know. And let's see, library trustees. So let's see, Sarah, is she here? I guess again, that's not a competitive race. Make sure I'm not missing anybody here. Next slide. Yep, okay. So, school board. Here we go. So whoever we have for school board, please come up. Alright, so there are, three candidates, including the statement that was given to me by Jill Smith. And Marcel, we'll start with you, alphabetically.
How many seats are open?
There is, yeah, this is hard to figure out. There's one seat from Canterbury.
One Canterbury and one Belmont.
There are two seats from Belmont. Jill Smith is running against Mark Eckberg, and Mark was not able to come tonight. But I have a statement from Jill that we'll read. She obviously won't be answering any questions, but the competitive race, as far as Canterbury is concerned, is this one right in front of you. So we'll start out with Marcel, and then we'll go on to Alice. You have 3 minutes.
Hi. Oh.
Sorry.
I was like, I could have done it without the mic, for real. I'm a teacher, I could have done it without the mic. My name is Marcel Pathak, and I'm currently a member of the school board for the past 3 years. I've been a resident of Canterbury for almost 20 years. 2 different homes, actually, one in the aforementioned Sherwood Forest, and about 9 years ago we moved to Southwest Road, so we're on this side of town now. I've been a teacher for almost 30 years, both in and out of state. I have a K through 8 degree, and I've always been, though, at the middle school level. I just kind of have an appreciation for that age group. I don't know what it is. I've been a middle school coach. I've worked on curriculum and school improvement committees. I'm currently an advisor for the Builders Club at the middle school, which is like a junior high key club, like a community service group, which I love. My kids came through here. Bryce graduated 2020 from Belmont High. My experience on the school board has been an unusual one because a week after elections we shut down. And then it became all about putting pieces together of a puzzle that was never going to fit. You know, how do we present curriculum? What does the bus company say? What does the state say? What does the CDC say? How can we reach the kids? How are we reaching the parents? Are they there? Are we presenting good curriculum? How much is too much? All of it, and nothing fit. And you know, as a teacher, you knew it was never going to be good enough. It was never good enough. No matter what we did, it wasn't going to be good enough. And even the past, I mean, it still lingered on. Then it was how to bring them back, and then it was how to meet them where they were, and how do we reach kids that were already disenfranchised, and then after that were more disenfranchised, and where do we go from there? And finally, things have started to settle, and you can kind of see a light coming. And recently, we've had some hard conversations about we need a hard reset. Now we need to start looking at where are we now exactly, looking at the data, looking at the kids, talking with the parents, talking with the teachers, and getting a strategic plan and a vision going to move forward. And you know, one thing that we would like to see is community members at school board meetings. No one's ever there. Michelle says, public comment, we kind of look out to a fake crowd, seeing none, and then we go on. But last night we were hearing about lack of communication. Come to the meetings. You know, but we can look at the lack of communication because that does really concern me, that people still feel like they're out of the loop no matter what we're doing. But you know, come see me. Am I time?
Yep. But we'll have questions.
Okay.
Hello everyone, thank you for being here tonight. My name is Alice Todd, and you have already heard about why and how I ended up in Canterbury with my husband. but I wrote my statement first, so I'm gonna do it anyway. We moved to Canterbury in 2014 with the intention of planting roots. Those roots turned into 2 children in the district who are sitting in the back corner over there, a 4th grader and a kindergartner, and both are loving their time at CES. I have a lot of time in the district ahead of me with a kindergartner. So whatever it looks like in the future, I want to be a part of making our district a place where our children and our students can thrive. We've heard a lot of things about the schools over the last 9 years. Some are great and some are not so great. I believe that every child is entitled to a good public education, and I want the best education and opportunities for our district students, and would love the opportunity to make that happen. I also feel that as taxpayers, we have a fiduciary responsibility to understand how our tax dollars are being used. The select board candidates went over it. It's 57% of our tax dollars, and that's at $4.7 million proposed for 2023. It's not an insignificant amount of money, and I want to see and understand and play a part in ensuring that we're getting the best value for our students, but also that the needs of the taxpayers are met. Last night was the candidates' night at Belmont High School, and I do see a couple of familiar faces here. So the topic of balancing student needs and the needs of taxpayers was an involved discussion. And I'm not going to claim to know the inner workings of the school board, and I'm not an educator, but I do work in finance. And the shortest explanation is that I'm a risk manager. And most of the current school board is made up of educators. And educators are amazing. Educators are fantastic. But most of the school board currently is educators. And the fact that those individuals take the time to show up after work and talk more about work is fantastic. It's amazing. But it doesn't really leave a whole lot of room for other perspectives. So, as a taxpayer in this district and a parent to students in the district, I feel that performing kind of a deep dive periodically into the budgets for the schools and determining true needs is a vital step to marry the needs of both students and taxpayers. I think that my background and skill set is a good addition, or would be a good addition to this board for a task like this, for an in-depth review. I also feel that Marcel touched on it as well, that there is a greater need for communication between the school board and the community. There was a discussion that resonated with me last night about how communication from the schools kind of breaks down after the elementary school level, especially in the middle and high schools, and I'd like the opportunity to improve this. I feel strongly that the communication leads to connection, and a greater connection with the community would be very beneficial for students and the community alike.
Okay, let's see if I can do this in 3 minutes. This is a statement from Jill Smith from Belmont. Hello, residents of Canterbury. Remember, we vote for everybody in both towns. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm sorry I'm unable to attend this evening. I would like to share a little information about myself and why I'm running for re-election to the Shaker Regional School Board. I'm asking for your consideration and support once again as you enter the polls. 3 years ago, I was elected to serve on the Shaker Regional School Board. At that time, I was excited to serve the community and the schools that had positively impacted my life from a very young age. 1 week after my election, the pandemic shut down schools throughout the country, and the schools of Shaker Regional were no exception. With the closures of schools and the quick pivot to remote learning, the meetings of the board became saturated with how to proceed in these unprecedented times. Hindsight being 2020, I can say there were things that could have been done differently. But with complete confidence, I can say that we weighed every decision and spent countless hours trying to do what is right for our community members and your children. With the pandemic in the rear view, we can now look forward, and we have work ahead of us as we look to the future goals of the Shaker Regional School District. Our school district is not simply made up of brick buildings scattered throughout our towns. Rather, it's the students who show up every day, hoping to know a little more than the day before. It's the teachers and staff who work tirelessly, hoping their lessons mean more than just times tables. It's the community that cheers from the sidelines at the soccer games and sets the model for the values that we hold. If re-elected, I would like to continue working on setting the vision and goals for the district, advocating for all students, building positive relationships with the other board members, as well as throughout the district, and working together as a community to strengthen our schools. This will be my focus if re-elected to the board for another 3-year term. As a lifelong resident of Belmont, I've been part of the many changes our little town of Belmont has gone through over the years. Being raised in a small community, much like Canterbury, came with many advantages. From my ABCs until my graduation in 1999, Shaker's dedicated faculty and staff supported me. With gratitude to them, I went on to study education and psychology at St. Michael's College in Vermont, earning a bachelor's degree in 2003. I returned to Belmont upon graduation and immediately entered the teaching profession in a neighboring town. Since the fall of 2003, I've been immersed in the field of education. Bringing my professional experience to the board has been helpful during my years of service, but I believe this experience will be invaluable as we navigate the years ahead. I've seen firsthand the many changes that have occurred in the school system, as well as with our student population during the pandemic. I want to be part of adapting and evolving to provide our students with the best education possible as they progress through our schools. Not only does my professional life draw me to serving on the board, but I also have 2 daughters in the district. My oldest is in high school, my youngest attends middle school. Both my children are successful members of their school communities, and I'm thankful for the educators that are having an impact on their lives. My family has deep roots in the Shaker soil. My grandmother, Sue Roberts, my grandfather, Norman Baldock, and my father, Roy Roberts, all spent years at Shaker board meetings. I thank them in part for the education that I and now my daughters have received in the Shaker Regional School District. As my grandmother often quoted, "Always leave the woodpile higher than you found it." I would be honored to serve my community and continue this tradition of service. There's another couple paragraphs, but it's our time. There you go.
Some questions from,
Yes, good. All right, let's go to a Zoom question.
I apologize to you on Zoom, for not having gotten to questions, but, is it correct that no one who has spoken, is running unopposed?
That is correct.
Yeah, so that was one of the questions. There are a few questions here. Frank Tupper has asked, who should remove books from the school library because of content, the school or the State Department of Education?
2 minutes.
The school, I think it's the school.
Is that on you? You just don't hear it.
Okay,
It's just for Zoom.
no, oh, just for Zoom.
Yeah, you got a projector back there.
Book burning, this is tough for me. Again, I was a kid that grew up in the South. I saw a lot of this controversy over beautifully written books. I think that the books your children read are up to, it's a family discussion. I do not think that the State Department should decide which books fit and which books do not. It comes down to maturity level sometimes. I guess aside from, there should be some discussions about what's in your library, but I think that local control is important. And, that's just really what I think about that.
I would also agree that it's at the school level. I think that librarians are fantastic. And honestly, my children love not only our librarians here in town, but the librarians of the school. And I think that I trust those librarians to make sound decisions in what my children are not capable of reading, because they can read, but what they should be reading. So I do think that it is at the local level.
Can we do one more question?
Sure.
So Patrice or Steve Reich has asked, apparently it's just me, but isn't the compelling issue for the the school board candidates the question of whether Canterbury should be split off from the district.
Okay, well, hang on, right now it's a study. But, you know, well, I mean, within the past 2 years, there was a House bill that was up. It was 1679, I think, don't totally quote me on that, that had come around that they wanted to dissolve every cooperative school district in the state. And I think that there only would have been a year to do so. So our last study was in the 80s, I think. So if the taxpayers are willing to pay for this warrant article, because, you know, there's things that need to be paid for, lawyers and expertise, because it's very, very, very intricate. I've been researching it a lot with the different school districts. I think Newington just left its cooperative school district. But it wouldn't be bad to have the information just in case a House bill comes back around that passes. And we have to, everybody has to dissolve. So I don't think it's a bad idea to be educated on something that could be, you know, could rise up again and come down the pipe. And, you know, I heard those parents at the first, you know, meeting, their concerns with the busing at a certain time of the hour and different things. And I think people have the right to, you know, there's nothing wrong with being educated about what's happening. I do want to say though that I heard, I hope I can get this out, and some things last night about people moving into town and saying, in Canterbury, and saying, but where are you going to send your kids to high school? I heard that 15 years ago. And my son graduated and he has lifelong friends, and that wasn't his experience, and that kind of makes me sad that that's still kind of his prevailing feeling in town of, oh, the elementary school grade, where are you going to send your kids? And I just want to put on record that that was not my child's experience.
I also agree that it is a study. And in order to complete the study, there needs to be professional opinion. You can only go so far with town residents and school board members and select board members. There's only so much research that they can do. And truthfully, they don't know what questions to ask. The RSA surrounding this is very complicated and leaves a lot of room for interpretation. And truthfully, this is just to complete the study. So we do need to have this study completed, in my opinion.
Do we have any other, is this for school board?
Yep.
Oh.
Questions for everybody. Hello, I'm Megan Portnoy. I live over on Baptist. So I am one of those people that make you sad. I come in here and I have a 6-month-old baby boy, and we're already like, where's he gonna go to high school? And I have heard from the community a lot of basically, you know, well, my kids went through it. And if it's good enough for my kids, it's good enough for your kids. But I think that things are wildly different, and schools are changing. And I like the idea of my kid having a choice in where he wants to go to school. And so I'm curious, I support the warrant article. If the facts and figures come out that this should be dissolved, that there should be more choice, more options, how much of your decision making will be based on nostalgia versus facts and figures?
Oh, I can answer that now. It will not be based on my or the school board's opinion. It'll be based on the voters of both towns. The Shaker Regional School District, or what I have to understand, will have to vote to dissolve the school district, and it will truly dissolve. There will be no school board, teachers, we will, you know, we have to hire a superintendent. It would be dissolved. There would be, you guys would, or Canterbury would have to come up with its own school board, how many members, all of that. But it wouldn't be a school board decision, it would be gone. it wouldn't matter either way. What made me sad was the prevailing sense that what we're providing this district was somehow less than over in Belmont.
I was just looking at the statistics when you move into the area, how the schools are performing. So I mean, like, yes, anecdotally, it's great for individual kids, but
if you compare
look
it
at
to the
overall.
state, you'll see similar numbers.
So the other thing about this study is that the original warrant article actually included Belmont into its factor. It's not necessarily a complete withdrawal. It's a study to decide whether or not we should be withdrawing, whether or not we should be providing school choice, whether or not we should be having Canterbury Elementary turn into Canterbury Community School and have it K through 8 and give options for high school. So that's my hope, and that's, again, why we would need the consultants to come in and why the warrant article is coming back again.
Other questions for school board?
Here. I was just,
Wait.
informational question. My name is Claudia Light. Okay. My name is, okay, my name is Claudia Light. I've been joining 6 years at the middle school.
Louder, Claudia.
Okay, I was taking mask on.
Don't put up your eyes.
Okay. My name is Claudia Light, and I taught for many years at the middle school, and the system is a great system. I'm just wondering, what is the population numbers? Could we, it's always been said we could never have our own high school, and that's what we need to be thinking about. Are we gonna find another school? What are the numbers at the moment in the district? That's what I'd like to know. For Canterbury kids.
We're probably both going to have the same answer. This is what the study will answer. This is why we're doing the study. We are looking at the committee, I'm not the committee, Brandy's organizing a nice committee. People are looking at all of the options and, because it is complicated and but a lot of towns have chosen to go their own way and have contracts with other schools, be it Concord, be it whatever, but this is what we're going to be looking at. I mean, all of the options, and that's what the money's for. It's for getting all of those answers.
There is actually an initial study report from the withdrawal committee that actually does have all of the numbers that were looked at. And Randy, you're gonna have to be honest here as to where exactly it can be found. I know it can be found on the SAU website. But the numbers are there and available for public consumption.
Because our population in the school has been declining for many years. We had a bubble and then the bubble burst and then kind of dribbled away, so.
She's asking how many kids in the school and are we growing?
Oh, we have currently, I believe there's 116 children in Canterbury Elementary. I believe in total, the number for the entire district is 1,162, I believe. And I'm not positive of the breakdown for Belmont Elementary, Belmont Middle, and Belmont High School. I'm not sure.
I have it in a binder at home. We get that monthly. We get the enrollment report once a month. It is there.
Jim, there's a request that the speakers identify themselves. People have forgotten their name.
Oh, goodness.
Marcel Pepe.
And I'm Alice Todd.
And I'm Jim Miller. According to this. Any other questions for school board, or we will shift to general questions? All right, yes? Good?
I'd love to ask a question that's not related to the idea of splitting. I know, aren't you thrilled?
Wow.
How do you feel that schools should address the needs of children who are exploring their gender identity?
Jim, will you repeat the question, please?
Yes, the question is, how should the schools approach teaching children that are exploring their gender identity. Right?
Well, currently I'm a teacher in Manchester, and this is right at the forefront with our kids because we have such a huge, large population of students, and it's very diverse. And we need to work with counselors and parents and, you know, put some real kind of, speak with the kids and say, hey, what can we do that makes everyone comfortable? I think we have to explore the idea of maybe changing up how bathroom settings work. I think we need to allow students to feel comfortable in whatever their needs are. And I think in our school we do a good job of that. We give students, like, there's a lot of asking of questions, like what do you prefer? I think the students are, I mean, the kids are so amazing. They feel very comfortable with letting you know, what is going on, how they would like to be addressed, and the kids are so amazing because they just kind of go with it. You know, it's, the kids are I don't see anything wrong with the children themselves, which is amazing, and you gotta kind of take the lead from the kids. And I think they're a lot better than the adults. And, you know, letting us know and being accepting and, you know, we've been taking their lead, but I think, you know, it's a complicated subject that we need to have open discussions and, you know, let it be known that we need to make everybody feel comfortable and safe.
I think that it comes down to communication. A lot of it comes down to communication. Communication with the child, communication with parents, communication with teachers. And being open and talking about it is exactly how a child is going to feel more comfortable. In my opinion, I would hope that, you know, our kids have that person at the schools, or a parent, or a counselor, or something like that, that they would feel comfortable doing that with. And if they don't, then that's something that we need to look into.
Okay. If there are no other questions for the school board,
Just one clarification. In the report, the interim report that the committee has, the number of students, the number of students in Belmont is 1,027. The number in Canterbury, 226, for a total in the district of 1,254. That's in the report, and we found this report, did we find it in the town newsletter?
so it's a link in the town newsletter.
The town email.
Town email. Yeah, if you try clicking on the link in the town newsletter. All right, well, we can have a round of applause for And now I will open it up to questions for any of the candidates or, yeah, so go right ahead. If anybody has any more questions. Oh, that's right. Different question. Sorry, Megan.
Okay, just two questions.
The first shall be last, the last shall be first.
I'll start with the quicker question for planning board. Recently, I went to a zoning board meeting where they passed this, they approved the zoning request for a man to manufacture Title II firearms in the commercial district of Canterbury. And I know that their parameters for voting on that were pretty black and white, but it's going to the planning board next. And so my question, I know you're not voting on that specifically unless you happen to be an alternate that day, but would be how you feel that businesses like that fit with the character of Canterbury, and if you think they are appropriate for a commercial district. Oh, I have a second question.
I'm not familiar with what.
Well, someone wants to manufacture Title II firearms in the district.
So this has been a bit in planning review, and there's the legal facts of what people can and can't do, and what will and will not be allowable in a specific zone. I'm personally not a giant fan of the idea of somebody running a weapons manufacturing situation in that location. I think there's a lot of pretty valid reasons that the planning board is a little hesitant to approve that. You know, obviously, it's gonna come down to specifically what is permitted and not, and it'll be a conversation. If somebody asked me, like, to make the decision myself on my own opinion, I'd probably go, do we need to? Is that really quite exactly what belongs there? But, you know, the ultimate decision, and if I do end up voting on that issue, the ultimate decision is going to be made based on the facts that are presented when we discuss it. You know, that's probably not the most satisfactory answer I can give you.
Well, the question is if you think it fits with the character of the
I am not, based on what I know right now, I would say no, not really. You know, I read through the zoning board notes on it. It's certainly an interesting conversation. It feels a little off, yeah. But I don't know all the details. I did not sit at that zoning board meeting. It seems like a strange fit for Canterbury to me. And I think that there's a lot of really valid reasons, especially from the neighbors, as to why that's not something that people are gonna want to have there.
You have a follow-up?
question for Selectman. I know, it's a little awkward. Selectman candidates. All in a row. So my question for you, I am also, as most people are, concerned about development. What is your 10-year vision? I know it's only a 3-year term, but the choices that you're gonna make and the things you're going to vote on are gonna affect Canterbury for a really long time. So if you could give me like a 1 minute, what is your 10-year vision for this town? I'm looking. Yeah, you're right in front of his face. Whoever would like to go first.
Yeah, I'll stand up. So I think a long-term view for town, like we discussed tonight, education is the big one, and the master plan. I think we need to establish an educational view, see what that's gonna cost us, and then we need to decide how we are going to expand or develop exit 17 and 18. Those are our two, for lack of better terms, cash cow potentials. We could put commercial buildings there, we could do industrial, that would generate revenue. Those sort of developments could offset schools, fire, whatever else we need, but it needs to be mitigated and controlled. Whatever growth we have, we can't just jump into it and grow. And I think we need to sort of prioritize what this town wants, whether it's police and fire, schools, roads, whatever we need to see what that's gonna cost us and how growth will affect that. So I would say anything that we do on large scale would definitely need impact studies and impact fees, because it will be a shock to the town. Other than thorough research, I just like to see the town, if we do wanna grow, we need priorities, and we need to grow steady and slow, not fast and abrupt. We need to just slowly develop the town so it maintains the town's character, and we don't lose the identity of what we are.
I think it's gonna be challenging for development in Canterbury in the next 10 years. One of the things I've always believed in is high-intensive soil surveys for different developments. You know, when we talk about 1 acre zoning, or 3 acre zoning, or 10 acre zoning, 5 acre zoning, those are all kind of arbitrary numbers. And from a natural resources standpoint, when you divide up land into 3 or 5 acres, you know, arbitrarily, you're really taking that land right out of production. If it's forest land or agricultural land, it's not that you can't, it's a scale of opportunity that is lost when you subdivide land arbitrarily. I think I'd like to see more zoning based upon soils and where it's most appropriate to do some of our building and not do building. And prime example is in Concord, in 1840, they had a master plan for Concord. You did not build in the floodplain. You had 5 acres, you had 5 acres in the floodplain and you had 1 acre on the upper terrace where Main Street is. And, you know, we lost all of that prime agricultural land, whether it be the tech school, the highway hotel, all those places, we lost that agricultural production capability. And those are our most important soils, and I think we have prime soil mapping that we can do in the state of New Hampshire and towns, and I'd like to see more zoning according to soils capability. And, you know, we're gonna have to build someplace, but I don't think we wanna build on some of our most critical soils for other uses.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So I think the theme that's emerged tonight is that pressure is here. It's coming, it's only gonna get worse. To clarify a little bit further, the exit 17 area is zoned commercial, 18 is zoned industrial, so there are differences. To go back to your previous question about the firearms manufacturer, he could have set up in the industrial area without a need for a zoning change. It's coming. The other thing is, Kathy and I own a farm. You know, many people in this room have eaten our vegetables and our eggs and all that other stuff that we produce. So we want very much to keep the rural character of this town. Cluster developments, Logan gave a pretty good explanation of cluster developments. Just to sharpen it a little further, the concept of cluster developments also includes, think of them as forever wild tracts of land, trails, things like that, where people can recreate without seeing their neighbor's house. I can't remember who said that, Randy, I think that was you. So that's what I would like to see in our tenure. It's coming. So it's just how we handle it, planning board handles it, zoning board handles it. It's gotta be as a group effort.
Great. Randy. Well, we have actually somebody who hasn't asked a question before. Oh, you have a Zoom question? You have your own question? Tell you what, first I'm going to go back to the room, and then I'll go back to you, and then I'll go to Randy. State your name for the Zoom folks.
From Shaker Road, and I have a question specifically for do I need to talk louder? I can talk wicked loud.
Yeah, great, Teresa.
Never mind the mic, but I guess the Zoom people need it. The gentleman running for the planning board, have you in the past in another town had any experience as an alternate or a full-fledged member of any planning board?
No.
Thank you.
Great. Nice to get a quick answer. Hold on. What? No. He walks over next.
My question is for the planning board candidates. I believe you may have misspoken about the industrial zone, in that I was surprised to see that it's by special exception that manufacturing is allowed in the industrial zone. When you look at the, whatever that pink paper is, you know, the zoning ordinance. So anyway, could you, the three of you, if Lucy's still there, could you speak to how you see the difference between our commercial zone at exit 17 and the industrial zone? I'd like to, I'm really concerned about the recent zoning board action on exit 17.
Okay. Start here.
This falls very much into the category of, can somebody please hand me the sheet of paper that actually defines these? There are differences between what's allowable in commercial and industrial zones. I will fully admit I do not know those differences off the top of my head. says that manufacturing is allowed in industrial, but not commercial, because he generally knows his stuff on this. So your question is how I feel about.
Do you see any difference
Do I-
between those zones?
I mean, I see a difference between those, and I know that there is a difference as they are written. And my understanding is that there is more sort of manufacturing type things permitted in an industrial zone versus a commercial zone, which might be more like, stores kinds of things would be commercial use. I know that the development of those two areas of town is a big ticket issue for a lot of people and for the town as a whole. And I think there's going to be a lot of conversations about that over, both in regards to the master plan conversations and also just in regards to specific permitting decisions over the next few years as we see growth there. Does that answer your question? Give or take?
Yes, thank you.
Pretty much the same thing that Logan said. I see commercial, I don't have the paper that defines in front, but I envision commercial being retail, stores, businesses, versus industrial has to do with manufacturing or fabricating or, a completely different kind of business.
Okay.
I think I know what you feel.
Okay. I'm gonna just grab a question from this side of the room and then we'll be over to Randy.
Adrian Hutchinson from Capitol Road. I have a question for our selectmen candidates. Looking at Canterbury at times, we have not necessarily been, and maybe currently, welcoming in that for young families, blue collar workers. And I guess I want to know, what's the most important thing you feel like we could do as a small town government to create that kind of diverse and thriving community where we're not only supporting retirees, those who are higher up in the echelons of their careers, but also those blue collar workers, those new families. We don't want to be a community solely of retirees. That's not very healthy. So I guess I want to know, just a summary, what do you think we can do, the best thing we can do to support that diverse community moving forward?
I know it's a big question, like a lot of the questions tonight. We'll start on this end and go a minute and a half. We'll each have a minute and a half.
So in a minute and a half, I'll try to address your question. So, first of all, I agree. We need to promote workforce housing, attract young families, attract blue collar workers into town. How do we do that is a difficult question. So one way is accessory dwellings, in-law apartments, things like that. I still go back to the idea of cluster developments. There's an example of a cluster development just up the road here, almost directly across from the Public Safety Center. That is, I think, mostly, if not all, senior housing. It can work. So smaller houses, houses, I think the trend now is toward a smaller house, away from the McMansions. So I think in a minute and a half, that's about as good as that.
You still have 30 seconds.
I can dance.
Time crawls. Okay.
Well, first of all, the spruces on the top of the hill, the buildings are clustered together, and I wouldn't call it a cluster development, because a cluster development really is a cluster of buildings on a piece of land, a larger piece of land, where better than half of that land is put into permanent open space. And that's the whole idea of cluster development, is protect critical soils, critical land. If you take a nice 100-acre hayfield, conventional build-out is to, go down every acre and put a house on it. You could so you could have 100 houses or something. But when with clusters, you put the same number of houses but on a smaller area to keep more open space. And so you still have that resource for agriculture or forestry. But for Adrian's question, encouraging younger folks, it's the gentrification of the rural areas, small towns like Canterbury is, the kids that grow up here can't afford to live here. It's very difficult for them. How do you do it? You might try a tax incentive. Accessory dwelling units, they're awful small from what I've seen. I mean, they need to be modified, I think, to make them more livable, especially if they're gonna have young families. But there can be some incentives, but the real issue is the cost of housing is, our young people cannot stay in the town that they grew up in, just the nature of the real estate development that we have in our hands.
I just have a question. Are you trying to state how do we attract young people to town, or how do we welcome people in town that
How
are
can
here?
you best support that kind of healthy, diverse community moving forward? If you could pick anything that you think would be the biggest impact, what would it be?
I think truthfully it's schools, and I know I'm beating a dead horse in essence, but if you have good schools, I came to town because of the elementary school. I think if you invest in your schools, it attracts younger people. We talk on the other end of the spectrum of letting older citizens age in place, pushing the spruces, pushing those small cluster subdivisions to keep people in town. When they downsize, that now opens up their homes for younger families to come. I'm a blue collar person, I'm a carpenter. Your husband's a carpenter, we know how it is. We have 2 kids. It is difficult to live in town. Affordability is difficult. But on that same term, affordability is difficult everywhere. It's not just Canterbury, and as I think the issue it's above an immediate response. You can't just wave the magic wand and say, here's a $200,000 house. It doesn't work that way. The nature of the beast, the nature of housing, the nature of development, you want to maximize your investment. You don't want to build $200,000 houses when you can get $500,000. So I think that is a struggle. It's difficult, but if we do push the potential zoning for clusters or smaller homes, or maybe putting regulations on the type of neighborhoods we have, that could be a way to make it more affordable. So I don't know if that answers the question, but it's difficult.
Thank you. Well, I'm hearing a lot of common concerns and
I'm gonna wrap it all up for you.
and shared, not just the selectmen, not just people want to cooperate and solve these problems, so I'm kind of encouraged about that. Randy?
Thank you. Hi, Adrian. I'm gonna piggyback off your question because it was perfect. I like to consider myself a younger member of this community. Hold your judgment. But I will tell you this, if you want to write a warrant article, how do you find out where to do it? You don't. There's nowhere around here. You want to find out what's going on in town, etc. There's nothing that goes out when big items are on agendas. We have a horrible communication problem. And so this question's gonna go for everyone but the school board members. I was in the hot seat last year, so you guys are off this one. I don't know if the committees talk to each other. We have a huge communication problem in town. People don't know. I attended my very first town meeting last year. I never even knew it was a thing. So my family moved here in the 90s. I graduated from high school. I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know how our town government was run. If you look on our town website, it doesn't say how things are run. It doesn't say how you get things done. So it's very hard to get information, which I think is the crux of Adrian's point, is that people don't feel welcome. They have no clue what's going on. And if one more person tells me to go down to the store and look on the wall there for information, come on, that is not a reliable source to way to get things out to your entire community in 2023. So what ways are you guys going to improve communication?
And I'll start at this end and work my way down. But first, I have to ask, when did you start noticing the newsletter that comes to your mail?
Probably in 1993 when we moved here, and I never once read it.
Okay, that's where all kinds of stuff is. But did you not read it because you thought it was a church publication? Yes. Okay, well that we're trying to change that image. It's never been all about the church, but we do it as a service to the
And it's
community.
great, I read it now.
There is so much in it, but now we have the town email, which also provides
Yes.
a ton
It's a
of
long
information.
one.
I know there are people who don't look at either.
I just saw it, it's a long one.
Right, if you've signed up, there are a lot of people who just don't. Yeah.
Town government itself.
True.
How can it communicate better?
Yeah.
What would these candidates do to facilitate that?
Thank you. Yeah, to make the town sort of move more seamlessly, it is imperative that groups communicate. You know, I use this one all the time. I'm on the zoning board, Scott's on the planning board. We might cross paths once a year if our meetings overlap or there's something that involves both, and that really is not a good thing. You know, we sit and no one brought the fire truck up tonight. You know, we've got an $850,000 fire truck that we were just given a number. Where is the communication in that to involve the community in selecting that? You know, there's a lot of things that we don't, as a community, I'd say we're not aware of because we've been so used to running in a smaller circle of governance. So we need to be more transparent and more outgoing with how information is put out. You know, to address it, I go to the store to read the minutes, you know? So yeah, you know, we have Facebook, we have social media, you've got other avenues, you know, the town email is awesome. You know, maybe there's a way that we could get the town, the selectmen and or the other boards to post in it, you know, encourage their involvement in that since that does go out to a lot of households. We just have to find ways to bridge to the current systems that we communicate. I think more involvement, I think it's there, you know, the sources are there, we just need to put our time to get them to the sources of delivery, if that makes sense. There just needs to be more effort on the boards in the town to get involved.
All right.
I think one of the things that's changed over the years in Canterbury is communication between people is different. You know, it's electronic, a lot of it's electronic, Facebook, email and stuff. And I wasn't a participant in the Grange movement back in the day, but you know, there was a lot more social organizations in the towns that people talked face to face, not electronically. You know, you go any place and see people sitting together, they're staring at a thing. You know, they have those, and they don't talk to each other. Well, that's the same thing that's happening in Canterbury. You have everybody looking at that screen. They're not talking to each other. We need to have more opportunities for that. And you know, people go to church, but not a lot of people go to church. That's a social organization. There's some social activities at the library where they can exchange ideas and what's going on in town. And if you don't want to go to the store and read the thing on the outside, you know, but there's a lot of communication that happens on the steps of the store, just coming in and out, seeing people. But I think it's the nature of our communities. A lot of people don't even know their neighbor because they work out of town, they come home, you know, at 6 o'clock at night, they go in, they have their supper, do the thing with the kids, and then leave the next morning, but they don't know who the person is next door with.
Yes. I've only been in town for 7 years, but I'm native to Canterbury. I've played low for a couple of years, feel things out, listen to things, get to know people, get to know my neighbors. I'm running for planning board because I want to get involved. I'm on the solid waste committee. One way to find things out is join things, get active, get involved. That's the biggest thing. There's a lot of committee. I know Kent, I'm surprised Kent hasn't put another feeler out because we're dying for members on our committee. Get involved. You know, a lot of people complain about the transfer station. We're the ones that work on it.
Sounds like your first job.
Thanks, Ken.
So I'm going to echo what Jim said about the church newsletter. We started reading really as soon as we got to Canterbury. And it's a great source of information. I like the feel of the newsletter. So thank you for doing that.
I've just tried to change it from putting the pastor's message on the front page, which turns people off, even though she is awesome. But really, it's a community newsletter.
Yeah, it really is.
But I know a lot of people don't see it that way and don't read it now, even today. Even some of my neighbors just wonder what on earth this is. And so it's a huge problem.
Yeah. Town email is also a good source of information. I really go back and forth. I don't know how many of you subscribe to the Facebook page. Some of the worst rumors I've read have been on that page. So I certainly don't consider that a reliable source of information. It has its place, but it also didn't contribute to a lot.
But I remember when your wife, out of the kindness of your heart, would post important events that were coming up for people to, and that's not her job.
Right.
But maybe it could be someone's.
Yeah. And Brandy, just to finish the thought, town website needs a huge makeover. It's just, it is.
One thing on that, on the town website, I tried to make something, a fix on the solid waste committee. All our agenda minutes say 3 p.m. and our meeting day is on Thursdays, and I've asked repeatedly to change that. We meet on Mondays and the meetings are at 3:30. I was told that it's an IT problem.
Yeah.
The website cannot accept 3:30. It can only accept 3 p.m.
Wait for it, it's coming, it's coming. It's coming.
Logan,
Yeah, you'll. Deep breath.
Hi, my name is Logan Snyder, and I'm a millennial. The town website is frankly a problem. This probably has little to nothing to do with planning board, but since it's a thing I know something about, I'm going to talk about it anyways. Because my company builds websites, that is part of what I do for a living, I at one point looked at the town website to see if we could reasonably provide a quote on replacing it, because it is regrettably a hot mess. And I looked at it, my developer looked at it, and my developer said, no thank you, I would like nothing to do with this. And I said, that's a reasonable answer here. The website is not good. I think everyone kind of knows that it's not good, and I know because I've talked to a few people that nobody really quite knows how to do things with it. And again, this is not a planning board problem, but it's certainly a town communication problem. And if I was going to sit here and say, let's solve town communication problems, I would say we need a better website, and we need to have somebody who is designated as the person who knows how to make that website do useful things, like change the time of meetings, or clearly and loudly announce that town meeting is coming up, or easily post the minutes of things like planning board or zoning board or select board meetings. That stuff should be easy to find on the website. That shouldn't be a difficult proposition. And I think we really need to actually utilize official sources of information, like the town website, because the Facebook group is not an official source of information, good though it may be. The town Facebook page does not really get used. It's quasi-official. My understanding is that the town email is kind of a volunteer effort, so the email is great. Town newsletter is also great, but a volunteer effort is maybe not how we should all be relying on getting communication, nor should you, have to show up to a committee meeting to know what's going on in the committee meeting as a town member. So, I think we need to improve our use of technology. Like I said, I'm a millennial, I believe in this stuff.
I'm assuming that if anyone has to leave, you can leave, but so far, there's still a couple questions. We'll keep going. Go ahead.
Sumner, I was wondering if you could explain the position you're running for?
Thank you.
Sumner, I understand you're running for the position of school moderator.
Yeah.
Could you explain to us what that is? Because it's not a seat on the school board, right?
Yeah, so the Belmont candidate for moderator was not able to come tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, the moderator is not a member of the school board. The moderator is the person that runs the school district meetings, public hearings on the budget, when they discuss the warrant articles, when they have the deliberative session, they are the facilitator of the meeting. There's, they usually run by Robert's Rules of Order, something like that, and there are some state requirements as well, state rules, as the procedures. But it's really a job of making sure the meeting is run orderly and that you vote on the articles and everyone has a fair chance at speaking and the rules are applied consistently to all the participants.
Thank you.
Any other burning questions? Any on Zoom?
I don't think so.
Well, this has been terrific. And if you have more questions, find your candidates. I'm sure that there's ways to get a hold of